Hey, folks. Hey, folks. Folks. Today's episode sponsored by sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off. What will you get 20% off on? You will get 20% off their tinctures in all strengths and flavors. You'll get the tincture with the melatonin, 20% off with Left is Best. You'll get the fudge, the coffee with Sebede. You'll get the lotion. I've been pounding on this stuff. I know this sounds weird, but my calves get very dry and itchy. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Particularly, when it starts getting this cold and the heat comes on. I got that dry heat in my apartment because it's got that radiator. Everybody knows the drill. Bang, bang, bang. Every time it comes on, it drives me crazy. And the only relief I get is from my Sunset Lake Sebede lotion. But they also have salves for your muscles. I use some of their salves for my eczema. They also have keef and flour and pre-rolls. Great product. They use integrated pest management, which does not necessarily mean that it's pesticide free. But in the case of sunsetlakesebede.com,
it is.
Their crops are pesticide free.
Wow.
Somebody actually emailed and said, just because it's integrated pest management doesn't mean it's pesticide free. Well, that's correct. But it also happens to be pesticide free. They use regenerative farming practices, so they protect their soil. They are great movement partners. They've donated thousands of dollars. I don't know if we know yet how much money they've donated to Planned Parenthood, and we're going to match from their big sale that ended last week. But they've donated thousands of dollars to strike relief funds and refugee resettlement and carceral reform and Planned Parenthood now and Give Directly. I mean, on and on and on. They're a great company and mostly employee owned. $20 minimum wage when they're harvesting. sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off. Great company, great product. And now we'll see, but I'm going to presume, great show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's casual Friday. That means Monday is casual Monday, Tuesday, casual Tuesday, Wednesday, casual hump day, Thursday, casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, December 1st, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Washington Bureau Chief of the Intercept, author of a couple of books, but now his latest, The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution, will be joining us to talk about that book and more. Also on the program today, Matthew Film Guy in studio. We'll be talking about why he's in studio. It's not just because he's going to give us a film recommendation for the weekend. Meanwhile, claiming it will protect civilians, at least 109 are dead already as Israel begins bombing Gaza again, following the expiration of 7-day truce. Just happened. George Santos expelled from the U.S. House of Representatives. The vote 311 to 114. Out of that 114, 112 of them were Republicans. New York Times report: Israel knew of the Hamas plan a year ago. A lot of incompetence associated with this.
Those are the echoes of 9/11.
Yep.
A little bit.
Speaker Johnson's job tenuous as conservative rebellion begins to simmer. UAW launches a unionization drive at auto plants across the U.S. and also calls for a ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, or I should say Hamas. Florida Republican Party chair accused of sexual battery. Ron DeSantis says he should resign. Senate Judiciary Committee finally issues those subpoenas for Leonard Leo and Harlan Crow in its investigation into the corruption and ethical lapses of the Supreme
Dick
Court.
Durbin.
Yep. Tommy Tuberville will back off his hold on military personnel in general, but instead focus on woke military personnel. And who are those woke military personnel? I'll let you be the guess.
You can tell just by looking at them.
Yeah, well, you can see there's something
You can squint at them.
Yeah.
sort of shady about them.
Yeah.
If you get my drift.
Certain shades. E.
All this and more on today's Majority Report.
Hi.
Emma Vigeland.
Yep.
It is Casual Friday.
Yes. Quite casual. Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
All right.
I got my COVID booster finally, or not the
Ah.
booster, this year's round of shots, and so I'm a little bit sore, but not too bad.
Okay. I got to do that.
I'm like because we all got it in
Around the same time. Yeah.
September, and now we're gonna be like have suits of armor on.
Except Bradley, actually. Bradley. Not him.
Not Bradley.
He getting his booster today. All right.
Bradley's getting his
Doing
today.
your part.
I should also say Sandra Day O'Connor passed away today. Former justice on the Supreme Court. I think she regretted their ruling in the Bush v. Gore. I think there was some reporting to that effect, that she had said something to that effect. And, well, she should have,
Yeah.
frankly. She was not my favorite Supreme Court justice, let's put it that way. But she's also wasn't even anywhere close to as bad as the five that sit on the court now.
Right.
Or I should say six right-wingers.
And at least she retired, right? Before,
Right.
clinging to power.
Yep. Let's get into this. We will obviously be talking about the resumption of bombing in Israel. But the good news is they're sending out leaflets with perhaps one of the most complicated methods in which you can go to a place that presumably would be safe, even though you got the AP's reported
It was Reuters reported
Reuters.
that they're bombing in the south, in Khan Yunis, which is a southern Gazan city. I mean, they already said they would do that, but that they are also bombing aid trucks around the Rafah crossing to Egypt.
Yes, of course. Of course they are.
Which, by the way, we know how precise they can be. We knew this before, but it's been bolstered by a wonderful investigative report by 972 magazine about their usage of AI to be as precise as possible when targeting these specific locations for bombing. So it's on purpose.
And they, in other words, also they're making they are completely aware of who they're hitting when they're hitting these places. Mm-hmm. And really, I mean, well, we'll get into that.
How many journalists have died?
6. I think we're up to 60 something now. But let's turn for a moment to what just took place on the House. We certainly have seen expulsions in the past, but not that many. And we should be clear that George Santos is not being convicted of anything. But I want to just add the word yet, because the ethics committee has looked at this stuff and they're like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's nuts. And here is Representative Max Miller, Republican from Ohio, rising to say why he's going to vote he's going to vote for expulsion. We should say there was 112, almost half of the caucus. Well, probably about almost exactly half of the Republican caucus voted to not expel Santos. It would have been far more. We should just be clear on this. From a purely political standpoint, it would have been more advantageous for the Democrats not to expel him.
Yeah.
And allow him to, but it was very hard to justify not expelling him.
They're gonna want to run on, you know, Trump's crookedness in 2024, and it doesn't look good if you're gonna say like, okay, let's keep George Santos, the most crooked member in Congress, in office for political reasons. So that's probably their calculation.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think like they could have said we should wait until there is, you know, a conviction, but I don't. That's a weird precedent to set necessarily. But I don't know. It's a tough call. Nevertheless, here is Max Miller, Republican from Ohio, with his reasoning as to why George Santos should have been expelled.
Thank you.
Gentleman is recognized from Ohio.
Thank you. I'll keep this very brief. I myself have been a victim of George Santos and as well as other members of Congress in terms of defrauding through public donations. I had received an ethics complaint from the FEC, which I had to spend tens of thousands to defend myself. You, sir, are a crook. I know I should direct my comments to the chair. I yield back.
All right. Do we have his tweet? Let's put it up where he explains it a little bit more because he sort of raced through it there. But apparently he sent this letter out. Late yesterday on the floor, I alluded to a personal impact of Representative Santos's conduct. Earlier this year, I learned that the Santos campaign had charged my personal credit card and the personal credit card of my mother for contribution amounts that exceeded FEC limits. Neither my mom nor I approved these charges or were aware of them. We have spent tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees in the resulting follow-up. I have seen a list of roughly 400 other people to whom the Santos campaign allegedly did this. I believe some other members of this conference might have had the same experience.
No Democrat should have voted to expel this guy.
Exactly. While I understand and respect the position of those who will vote against the expulsion resolution, my personal experience related to the allegations and the findings of the Ethics Committee compels me to vote for the resolution.
Sounds like a skill issue.
Yeah, since I alluded to this in Florida,
What has happened to the Democrats?
I believe you're entitled to further explanation of my position. I mean, it would have been pretty fun. Maybe we'll ask Ryan Grimm about this because he, you know, had all of the Democrats basically waited to allow the Republicans to vote first. In other words, just like, you know, you can swing back around for the second time, you get a second chance and see, and just simply said, well, listen, we learned our lesson with this whole House vote, the speaker thing. We should really let the Republicans control this since it's one of their own. Let's see how they're all going to vote, because this is a cake and eat it too situation for, you know, the New York Republican delegation. They all wanted him out.
Oh, yeah. He was a massive liability.
A massive liability. But
Dem should keep him in.
Here is Santos rising in defense. And honestly, I wish, like, if there was a way to have like kept this going for the next week in the House, this would have been great.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from New York, Mr. Santos is recognized.
I'd like to move to have the gentleman from Ohio's words stricken from the record, please.
Gentleman's request is not timely, but the chair will remind all members to direct their remarks to the chair and not to others.
Gentleman's request is not timely, but I would remind members to direct their remarks to the chair. Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, hypocrisy, as I mentioned. My colleague wants to come up here, call me a crook. Same colleague who's accused of being a woman beater. Are we really going to ignore the facts that we all have passed and we all have the media coming out against us on a daily basis? Every last one of us has struggled with every little ounce of what happens within public service. I didn't come here. I can go and read about all my colleagues. I'm not going to stand here to smear them. I'm not going to stand here and use the time I have to say ill things about my colleagues. I refuse to stoop to that level. Well, the only thing I want to make clear
did he
is
just call him a woman
if
beater?
tomorrow when this vote is on the floor, it is in the conscience of all of my colleagues that they believe that this is the correct thing to do, so be it. Take the vote. I'm at peace. I have accepted that whether I get expelled or I don't, I I have accepted that I cannot control that faith, Mr. Speaker. I have done the best I can to serve in this body and to deliver the best I can in my campaign promises to vote as a conservative voice in this body. I stand by that. And with that, I'd like to yield.
It's so funny that he's like,
And-
I'm not going to stand here to smear you, but clearly, like, that was the only thing he was prepared to do, and then he had to fill the rest of the time.
Exactly. Wait, are you still letting me talk? I thought you were going to stop me from talking after I said that he was a woman beater. Now, to be fair to George Santos, who is no longer a congressperson, I just want to be clear. It's not, this is not coming out of left field. Representative Max Miller has been accused of abusing his ex-girlfriend by his ex-girlfriend in a book. He, to be fair, also has filed a defamation suit against her. Very unlikely to prevail because there's no indication that she did this on with malice intent, even if it's not true. Although who knows? But he's a public figure, so you have a pretty high standard for what constitutes defamation in that sense. But just so Santos could be right. Maybe Max Miller should also be expelled from the House. I mean, there's two ways to look at this hypocrisy. Right. One is that Max Miller should not be rising just because he had his credit card stuff stolen by Santos.
And his mother's. And
his mother's. Stolen by another member of Congress.
I got to know how he got his mother's information.
Or maybe we should just everyone should be held to account, and they should be summarily expelled as well. It might be interesting to see this happen to Menendez. Now, I don't know if Menendez actually stole anything from his colleagues, but it might be worth looking into.
Menendez and Santos meet each other and just steal each other's lives entirely.
Exactly.
Yes. Breaking news, it seems like Anthony DeVolder now running for Congress in New York 3. No, that's not actually the case. That was his alias, but I thought I'd get that. But I didn't realize that this was the first time this has happened in over 20 years that someone has been expelled.
Yeah, I can't remember who the last one was, but I do recall it happening.
Only the sixth House member in history to be removed by his colleagues.
We should say, I love the idea that we all have something in our past, and that it basically, I guess the argument by Santos here is that unless you're literally caught, literally in the act. I mean, I haven't stolen any of my colleagues' credit card funds for over 18 months yet. Well, I guess it's probably closer to like 16 months.
Let bygones be bygones. Also, what was her security code?
Yeah.
What was your mother's maiden name, sir? It was trafficking.
The first car you drove.
I hope he tells all. Not that he probably got any real information like Madison Cawthorn, but I hope he just burns it all to the ground.
Santos?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's no doubt that Santos is going to try and write a book. But of course, it's all going to be lies. The guy is a pathological, con person.
Do you think we could get him on the show?
Yes, I do.
As a regular guest. Republican Roundup with George Santos.
Yes.
For the Republican perspective on this, let's bring in our expert.
A standard Republican.
We'll talk more about this with Ryan Grimm, D.C. bureau chief at The Intercept and author of The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution, coming out in just days. And now's the time to buy that book, but I'll let him make that pitch. But before we do, a couple of words from our sponsors. Holidays, difficult time, ladies and gentlemen. I find it to be. Just because you got to run around. You buy so many presents, you got to send stuff up. If you got a business, things are going crazy. People are going crazy with our new merch. We'll talk about that later. But the beauty is Stamps.com. It's your own personal post office. Doesn't matter where you are. Stamps.com. All you need is a computer and a printer. They'll even send you a free scale, so you'll have everything you need to get started with your shipping tasks. Now taking care of orders on the go is even easier because Stamps.com has an awesome mobile app. If you need a package pickup, You can schedule it through your Stamps.com dashboard. If you sell products online, Stamps.com seamlessly connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Facebook, Instagram, the whole shebang. It also, this is the beauty of it, gives you premium discounts on a wide range of stuff. Yes, you get 84% off of U.S. Postal Service rates. Yes, up to 84% off of UPS rates. But you also get discounts on shipping and mailing supplies, labels, even printers from the supply store. And one of the beauties about Stamps.com, when you're looking at, like, how am I going to figure out, how am I going to ship this, et cetera, Stamps.com automatically tells you the cheapest and fastest shipping options. Stamps.com has been doing this for over 25 years. They have been indispensable for over 1 million businesses. Get access to the USPS and UPS services you need right from your computer. You want to send, get your postage ready at 2 a.m.? No problem. 3 a.m.? No problem. On a Sunday, a Saturday, it doesn't matter. There's no lines. There's no traffic. There's no hassle. There's just you, your computer, and your printer whirring away at the dead of the morning because you can't sleep. Been
Sounds
there.
a little personal.
Been there. Stamps.com was indispensable to me back in the day when we were sending out DVDs. That gives you a sense of how long they've been in business. When DVDs actually had some value. But made it much, much easier. And also, I probably saved a ton of money. Give your business the gift of Stamps.com so your mailing and your shipping is covered this holiday season. Sign up with the promo code Majority Report, one word, Majority Report, for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. There are no long-term commitments, no contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, enter the code Majority Report, and you're going to get a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. Also, these are great. My sisters now have these. You're looking for a gift. What are you going to get your parents, your grandparents? What are you going to get your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, or whatever it is? Here's what the gift you're going to get them. It's Aura frames. Why? Because you don't know their technological skills, or you do know their technological skills, and you know they can't do. So you're going to want them to be able to set up this digital frame without any hassle at all. And you want them to be able to use it right out of the box. With the Aura frames, you can. Not only is this really super easy to set up, you can install the pictures on the frame before they even take it out of the box. And there's 2 ways of doing that. You can do it sort of remotely. They'll send you a code if you're sending the frame directly to the giftee, receivee. I don't know how to say that. Or you can you have the box. Before you wrap it up, you take they got a little QR code there. You go to the site, you load up with the app. Couldn't be easier. You'd start by downloading the Aura app. It's free, obviously. It takes no time to get the frame ready. And then you can preset the Wi-Fi on the frame, upload the pictures beforehand. All your grandparents, your parents, whoever it is, all they have to do is take it out of the box and plug it in. It is super simple. Wirecutter, among others, actually. All you got to do is Google this. Wirecutter called it the best digital picture frame. And the reason is because it looks great and it's so easy to use. The people who need a digital picture frame, they will not be intimidated by this one. Give the perfect gift this holiday. Visit auraframes.com/majority. That's AURA frames, all one word, .com/majority. Today, get $30 off their best-selling frames. These frames sell out quickly, though, so get yours before they're gone. That's auraframes.com/majority. Use promo code majority. You will get $30 off their best-selling frame. Terms and conditions apply. We'll put the links in the YouTube and podcast thing. See you in a moment. We'll be right back with Ryan Grimm. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Welcome back to the program. The busiest man in political journalism, Ryan Grimm, DC bureau chief at the Intercept, co-host of Counterpoint, and host of Deconstructed podcast, and now author of, this is your third book?
That's third book, yeah.
Wow.
The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. Congratulations on this one, Ryan.
Thank you, sir.
Ryan, am I in this one, and why not? Because I was in the last one.
You were in the last one, right?
Yeah. So
you might be.
I might be. Okay. Well,
I have an index here.
I'm gonna have to.
I don't have a book handy, but you'll have to do the Washington thing and just go to the bookstore, open the index, look for your name. If it's not in there, you put it back on the shelf.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. I will. I'll do that right after the show.
This is you've written about sort of like the movement that brought some of these people, and this is sort of like is like a sequel.
Yeah, it's a sequel.
To your last book. I want to talk just a little bit about this because it really sort of gives a sense, an inside sense of what it's looked like from the perspective of those people who are known as a group of like almost like not even quite a caucus, but known as the Squad. Let's just start with that part about it. Like the Squad thing is more of, I don't know, like the description of certain politicians in the past is like young bucks or something,
Right.
I can't remember the young guns.
That's right.
Those three guys are now gone, Cantor, Ryan, and McCarthy. But the Squad, they don't caucus.
In the very beginning, they would text and they would meet and coordinate on votes, like particularly around if you remember, when they came into office, the government was shut down because Trump had shut it down trying to get his wall money. And so in order to open up the government, you had to then fund DHS, which meant funding ICE, which none of them wanted to do. So they would coordinate on, okay, how are we going to handle, voting to fund DHS, because there were a bunch of DHS spending bills. And
we mean there was 5 of them, right, at that time?
Well, at that time, 4. Yeah, basically the 4 of them, okay. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and AOC. And sometimes they would say, okay, we're all going to vote together on this one, and we'll be the only 4. But at least there was this strength in being not just one. But you're right. Like the name The Squad just came from an Instagram post where AOC posted a picture of the 4 of them and wrote Squad underneath it. And it just kind of took off from there. They are all endorsed, and most of them recruited, or some of them recruited by Justice Democrats. But Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar had both served in their state legislatures. Ayanna Pressley had been a Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016, who was the first African American woman elected, or actually any gender elected, citywide in Boston. She was an at-large city councilor there. So they were not the kind of mode of what Justice Democrats was looking for, which was kind of working class outsiders who were going to come in as populists and storm Washington. The only one that kind of fit that model was the bartender, AOC. But most of their candidates flopped. They were trying to elect 435 at the very beginning, new members of Congress. And so these were kind of the ones that made it through, but they didn't come from the same place. Like they didn't really know each other.
Right.
They admired each other and respected each other's politics, but they get thrown in, and now they're getting attacked by the Pelosi wing of the party. She's a Speaker of the House, and they're also getting constantly attacked by Trump himself. Plus Fox News is doing 24/7 coverage of them. So it kind of forges them into a unit, but it wasn't something that they kind of, sought out.
And just so I can remind everybody, when they come in, the Democrats had just retaken the House.
Yeah.
In that wave. And like the first thing that happens that I remember is like the Democrats were talking about like, we're going to roll out at least legislatively. I mean, I guess maybe, the occupation of Pelosi's office happens maybe, I think, chronologically before then. But they're going to roll out this big legislation, House resolution or House, legislation 1, which was their big democracy bill, et cetera, et cetera. And they step all over it by essentially saying that Omar, the Ilhan Omar had said that AIPAC has, outsized money influence in Congress, which is now almost like a laughable premise, right? Like the idea that the entire Democratic caucus would have stepped on their premier piece of legislation, which they later complained, no one seems to know that we passed this. It's because they spent the whole time trying to bash Ilhan Omar for something that Thomas Friedman had been saying. Yeah. I mean, it was amazing.
Right. And it wasn't just like a 1 or 2 day cycle. Like going back and re-reporting this, it was shocking how much time they spent on this.
So much time.
They're sworn in January. They're immediately that this starts to happen. And then Josh Gottheimer, your buddy from Northern Jersey, he gets involved, and he wants Omar censured. He's writing letters. He's going on CNN. And so then everybody is getting asked, every time they go on CNN, is Ilhan Omar, deserving of being censured by the Democrats? So that becomes a story. And then it continues through February. She says something else at an event at Busboys and Poets in Washington, where she's like, I don't understand why, you can say that the NRA has outsized influence in Washington, but you can't say that this foreign country has outside influence. Like, why can't you say that? And boom, then it erupts again. And it was January through the end of March or into early April that entire stretch when they're supposed to be saving democracy, it's just dominated by this question of whether or not she and Rashida Tlaib need to be censured by their colleagues.
Well, good thing we've evolved from that point.
Yeah, we moved on from that.
People in Congress who speak up for Palestinian rights and are maybe of Muslim descent don't face any discrimination at all.
What were the factors behind that besides the obvious, this is a way for the Democrats to sort of seem like we're not flaming liberals here or something. I mean, obviously, and Gottstein's got his own sort of agenda in this respect. But you make the point about the Obama administration, which I had never really realized or contemplated, that during the Obama administration, when it won in 2008, where, the Democrats took both the House and the Senate, and, it took them about 6-7 months until they got the supermajority. And they had that for really only about 6 or 7 months, because then Kennedy dies and Scott Brown comes in. But you made the point that because Rahm Emanuel went out, ran the DCCC, recruited all of these sort of Republican lights to run as candidates, that Obama was the first Democratic president in ages to actually have a Congress controlled by Democrats that was to the right of him.
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to Bill Clinton, who, was to the right of where the Democrats were in Congress at that time.
Jimmy Carter to the right of Congress. Yeah.
I mean, where does how does that play in with the Democrats retaking Congress with Pelosi, in that era? Because I'm curious as to there's a dynamic that's shifting and happening through these 2 decades.
Because, Rahm Emanuel powered his comeback on the back of a lot of corporate money and recruiting, as like you said, if he could find people who used to be Republicans or were when he was recruiting them, but they would switch, those were his ideal candidates. But because in 2018 it was really powered by a much more organic grassroots revulsion on the part of everyday Democrats at Donald Trump, that you got a much more progressive majority when they came in 2019. You had 62 Democrats, come in that class, and even the ones who are classified as, who register as New Democrats, which is, this kind of the pro-business faction, they're the ones that push the child tax credit and other social spending and climate spending the hardest. These were folks who were saying, if we don't pass a robust agenda, we're not going to win re-election in 2022. It was the complete opposite in the 2009-2010 cycle. Everybody who in a swing district voted for Obamacare or voted for the climate change bill that year, they thought they were walking the plank. Like they were doing something that was going to hurt them politically, but was, good for the planet or good for people's healthcare. So they were going to do it anyway. Most of them voted against it. This time they were telling Biden, get this stuff across the finish line. Like we need something to run on. And so there was, the energy was moving in a different direction. The other interesting parallel is, do you remember what Bibi Netanyahu did right after Obama was elected?
Yep.
2008. He used that moment where the entire world is celebrating the election of Barack Obama. He invades Gaza.
Yeah.
And what comes out of that is J Street. Finally in Washington, you get a progressive organization that says we need a counterweight to AIPAC because this is completely out of control. And so in 2019, that's what you have, the creation of Democratic Majority for Israel, DMFI. Basically, AIPAC doesn't have its own super PAC, and they spin up a super PAC to specifically to respond to the 2 Muslim women getting sworn into Congress. And that has a lot to do with why the first several months were all about this. Because like this is the kind of pro-Israel lobby seeing, okay, we can't allow these outspoken critics of Israel to gain a foothold in the party.
And the interesting thing about, I mean, that explains a lot as to like what was driving that. And of course, everyone knows they're going to spend $100 million to sort of like to sort of further that project. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's talk about Pelosi, and particularly in terms of AOC, because what also happens, the difference between 2006 and 2008 in terms of Pelosi's caucus and 2018 or 19, I guess, at that point, is that she is now to the right of a considerable amount of her caucus, whereas back in the aughts and in the Obama years, she's to the left of and this is really important for people to understand. The relationship is what dictates it. Where they are specifically, if being in the center of the party, 20 years ago meant like, I'm for cutting Social Security. Today, it would mean I'm for expanding Social Security, probably. But that same person wants to be exactly in the center of the party. Right. And so talk about that dynamic. And because I think you have a quote where AOC says something to the effect of like, my life is much better now as a lawmaker with Pelosi gone.
Right. Yeah. So I think the placement on the political spectrum is key. And also there had never really been, when AOC and the rest of the squad came in, it was extraordinarily unusual for a freshman to kind of come out of nowhere and be getting more attention than almost any other member of Congress, even Fox aside, but Fox in particular, just constant coverage of AOC, but also Omar.
She had higher name recognition amongst Republicans for the first year than she did amongst Democrats.
And the undertone of it too, I think, is just like something that we should reinforce, which was this very like sexualized and also angry kind of
super creepy
undertones that maybe someone like the leader of the party should have protected her from, but putting that aside for a second.
Right, but and particularly also because Pelosi's from San Francisco, she was used to being the kind of liberal in the party the entire time. When she came up, it's like it was a big win for the liberal wing of the party. And now all of a sudden she's getting questioned about her liberal credentials. And another thing that Ocasio-Cortez talks about is, she's like, I'm so tired of her using that line. What does she say?
The signs. I've got signs.
I got protest signs in my basement that are older than you.
Yeah.
And AOC is like, well, yeah, but mine aren't gathering dust,
right.
which really makes the point, because like she's saying there, like, but I'm the one that's doing it now. Like, it's our generation that is actually out in the streets. That's great that you have the signs in the basement, but they don't really belong there.
When you say our generation, I guess that brings up a question about, Hakeem Jeffries. We can talk about his ideology and some of the issues, and I certainly disagree on how friendly he's been with Israel, for example. But it seems like at the start of his leadership of the Democrats in the House, like they were able to keep the caucus together and let the Republicans hang themselves on that speakership debacle, right? And they all stood in unison and said, we're not going to solve this for you. It seems like even though Jeffries may not be ideologically where we would want him to be, he may have a more like updated, younger approach that members of the squad would welcome. And that seems to pair well with some of the quotes that, are making a ton of headlines from your book about AOC feeling like she was stifled repeatedly with Pelosi as leader.
I think some of that has to do with now they've been in office 4 years at the time when, Jeffries becomes leader, and they had been pretty loyal soldiers, during 2021 and 2022. Like they were the squad in general were not kind of burning the place down. The entire kind of hold the line effort, where they were trying to, hold back the infrastructure bill until they would get a commitment from Manchin and Sinema to do the bigger, social spending and climate package. That was a broad progressive caucus, fight. At the end, the squad actually broke off from the progressive caucus and did vote no on the infrastructure bill, but they were able to get enough Republicans that it passed. So that, like, even the one time that they did kind of split with the party and dig in on a left-wing agenda, it didn't slow things down. It does seem like Jeffries is just taking a different approach. Now he's certainly not stopping AIPAC. He has endorsed every incumbent. He has said the party will support Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and so on. But when he was asked about the outside spending from AIPAC, he said, outside groups are going to do what outside groups are going to do, which is just a clear green light, to go ahead and do it. Because if he wants to stop it,
he's like, any vendors who work for them against our incumbents, we're going to put on a blacklist. I mean, that's what Pelosi did,
right? Exactly.
In that instance. And it's also, I mean, the funny thing about Jeffries too, which occurs to me, is that he's not Speaker of the House were it not for AOC. Right? I mean, she took out.
It's funny, yeah.
She took out Crowley, who would have been Speaker of the House, I imagine, at this point. Absolutely,
yeah. Crowley was kind of like his mentor in New York City politics, and so he was caucus chair, and so everybody presumed he would be the next Speaker of the House. Progressives liked him, centrists liked him, the right wing, the Republicans liked him. Everybody loved Joe Crowley.
He spent a little too much time in Washington, it sounds like.
Only time in Washington, yes, exactly.
Well, how much of it, too, is like, her ability to leverage her fundraising apparatus to get some of those folks who might have been adversarial towards her to be more conciliatory, or she can make certain deals?
I don't think it's quite that. I think it's more that what's the percentage at this point for Jeffries in picking a fight with them? And also what's the percentage for the squad and picking a fight with Jeffries? They don't have an alternative, and Jeffries doesn't have really anything to offer because he doesn't have any power. They could have perhaps gotten some stronger commitments to try to keep AIPAC and that kind of super PAC money out of primaries, but otherwise, it feels like it's a fight that's more on pause.
And for him, it's like they're all in safe blue seats anyway. So it's a bit of a wash sometimes, I think, for leadership. But
what are they doing if in terms of? Well, I guess I got two questions. One is, and let me start with the early one. We spoke to Ilhan Omar. I don't know. Maybe I guess it was a year ago. I can't remember now. Maybe it was a year and a half, where she had talked about, and I think AOC had talked about this too a couple of years ago, the idea of making the progressive caucus a little bit leaner and meaner, insofar as saying, like, there's no requirement, there's no litmus test that you need to pass to become a member of the progressive caucus. All you need to do is pay your $4,000 or whatever it is, and you're in. Are they still thinking about doing that? Is there still like an attempt to sort of like begin to discipline their whatever their caucus in some way, so that they can be a little bit more sort of I guess a sharper instrument?
They actually did it in a very, very tiny way, and the rationale for it expanded in 2019, and I write about this in the book, where Jayapal and Mark Pocan, the chairs of the Progressive Caucus, won a commitment from Pelosi in order for their votes for her to be speaker, that 40% of seats on the powerful committees would go to members of the Progressive Caucus. And then Pelosi tricked them or outplayed them by having a couple people just join the Progressive Caucus. And she's like, "Oh, look at that. You got your 40%." And that really underlined what people had been saying for so long. It's like, look how easy that is. So you got your $5,000 in dues, but you've got this right-wing person on the committee. So you failed. So the next time they did tighten it for the first time. They actually do have requirements now. They're pretty minimal. It's something like you have to support 2/3 of these particular things, and you have to vote with the caucus. I think certain number of times, and you can be kicked out. You had I think one or two that left kind of quietly because they weren't sure where this was going, but it hasn't done a huge amount to kind of tighten it. But I also think that the kind of caucus in general moving to the left has tightened them up a little bit just on its own.
What is their plan? So they don't necessarily have any more plans to institute sort of like stricter measures.
I haven't heard about anything for the next term, but we'll see. And meanwhile, Israel-Palestine is like driving a wedge in between them, because you got Lois. We reported that Lois Frankel quit the CPC over it. People like Brad Sherman are in the Progressive Caucus. The CPC almost never takes positions on Israel-Palestine for that reason, that you have almost 90-ish members of the CPC, and you have 30 plus calling for a ceasefire, meaning that you've got more than 50 people who are in the Progressive Caucus who are currently not calling for a ceasefire.
Right.
Even after nearly 2 million, nearly everybody displaced in Gaza.
Yeah.
What is the plan? Is there a plan to fight this AIPAC dump of money by, is Justice Democrats sort of like a functioning entity anymore? Or they're scaled down, definitely, it seems like. But what is the plan? Because the upshot, we should say, in this is not just that they survive. If there's no return on that $100 million through DMFI, I presume it's going to be much harder for them the next cycle to go out and raise that kind of money, because they've got to show, return on their investment.
Right.
And if all they end up doing is just blowing money in these primary races and it doesn't impact the outcome, they can go back and say, like, well, we were able to discipline people with the idea of this money being deployed, but that's going to have less salience if the money doesn't actually work when they start to use it.
Yeah. Well, and what's that phrase? Nothing focuses the mind like the hangman's noose, or something like that. From what I'm hearing, there is a serious effort underway, and there is a kind of reinvigorated sense of coordination going on. Justice Democrats is definitely, still a going thing, and I think has been given new life in a way by this challenge, because the question of whether or not to band together and fight for something has been called by the other side. Like, right. It's not up to them anymore. Like, the question's been called, the battle is on. So it's either slink away or team up and fight back. And so they're teaming up and they're going to fight back.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's folks should really check this out. It is obviously it's a sequel to, but it gives you a great sense of from my perspective. And I was covering politics through most of this era that you're covering and referencing back to, but a lot of stuff that I hadn't thought about or wasn't aware of. I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you.
Now would be the time to buy it too for you,
yes.
I imagine, right?
Yes, get it right now.
Because this is like it's like Emily's List early
That's right.
early purchases
money.
is
Early
like
purchases
yeast,
are
right?
like yeast. Yeah, it's all the pre-sales. It comes out on Tuesday, so if you order it now, you'll get it by Tuesday. But yeah, all the pre-sales get rolled into the first week's sales, and so that's usually the time that you can put your biggest number forward. And so Ted Cruz is currently like at the very bottom of the bestseller list, and I'm eyeing him. I'm like, I think I can knock him off.
That would be satisfying.
That would be very satisfying.
That would be nice.
All right,
so people can do their part and knock Ted Cruz off.
Yeah.
I want to talk just a little bit about what's been going on this week. George Santos was just voted out, was just expelled, first time since Jim Traficant, who was from Louisiana, if I remember correctly. Was Ohio?
Ohio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ohio.
With the checkered pants. And
Yeah. And
beat me up, Scotty.
And it's an interesting dynamic because I would imagine the Democrats would have, like, if they really could have had their way, would have loved to have, Santos around next year to
Who
be
wouldn't?
sort of, right. I mean, honestly, like if you're trying to build a narrative about like corrupt party and a party that doesn't care, that would be the way. The Republicans seem to have their cake and eat it too in this instance because enough of them were able to vote against voting Santos out. But all the New York Republicans were able to vote him out. What's your sense of any of this? Is there any relevance to this? Now that there's 435 members, is the first time they've had a full complement, I think, of Congress people in, I don't know, a year or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not on a numbers game. It's not really that relevant, right?
Right. I think they waited until it wouldn't be relevant. Santos told McCarthy right out of the gate, like, just tell me what I need to do. And McCarthy's like, cool, then we will seat you. Because there was pressure on them not to seat him.
Yep.
When it emerged that everything was a lie.
Well, the New York, Suffolk County Republicans disowned him, I think, before he was seated even.
Right.
Yeah. And so the deal with McCarthy basically was, he had this extremely slim majority. And they needed his votes on measures that they were trying to get through, as not just for McCarthy to be speaker. And so I guess they're at the point now where they're like, you know what, we can. It's more important for us to be able to reelect some of these Republicans in New York State by being able to distance ourselves from him. Then we need his vote because we've got a couple other people in, and so they're feeling comfortable with their margins. And a lot that's going to be done between now and then will probably be. Government shutdown stuff, you always have votes from both sides. So, I think they just figured we can say goodbye to George.
Speaking of the government shutdown, like, what is your sense of what's going on with Johnson? I'm starting to read more of like conservatives complaining about him, but they're giving him a long honeymoon because I think on some level they know like he's one of us. It's just that is he tough enough to do whatever it is that I can't tell what exactly they want him to do, but whatever it is.
Right. He's going to keep annoying them. Anybody in that position would. There's rumors that he's going to kind of attach some type of surveillance reauthorization, 702 reauthorization to the NDAA, which a big priority of this Freedom Caucus joined. One of the few things they joined with the Progressive Caucus on is reforming 702 surveillance authorities. And there's rumors that he and the Senate might just try to slip it through using the NDAA. That's going to piss people off. Keeping the government open pisses them off. And he doesn't have any experience doing any of this. So he just threw in the towel last time, punted to this kind of laddered January situation, and it's hard to see how he. Like you said, what do they want? And what is the path by which he could give it to them?
That's
like
the
neither
thing.
of those questions have an answer.
Right. I mean, have like the people who got rid of McCarthy, have they gotten anything materially from it?
Not yet, other than McCarthy being gone, I guess.
I mean, I'm just curious.
Right. I can't think of anything.
It is bizarre. I mean, maybe they just did it and they realized that like the redoing this process over and over again, like they cried uncle because it was getting so chaotic. But am fascinated by those rumors that Nancy Mace has some dirt on Kevin McCarthy or something like that. Like it just felt so personal from Gates and from Nancy Mace to defect in that way.
Or dirt over like just personal stuff going on, plus Gates's whole ethics situation.
Yeah,
there's just giant mess. And the way they reasoned it was they think the country's headed in the wrong direction, so it's just and they would say, we don't know if this is going to work out for us or not, but we know that the direction it's going is bad, so let's grab the wheel, fling it into the ditch, and just see what emerges from the wreckage. That was kind of that was their public rationale for why they were going to do this. Which that's a logic, like that's a okay. Yeah, I mean that's a thing, but they don't have the White House or the Senate, which is just a very troublesome detail for trying to govern, trying to enact your agenda.
Getting back to your book, I'm also just reminded of the fight with where the squad essentially, maybe the squad plus, kept expanded unemployment compensation in the American Rescue Act. Manchin was trying to kill that from the Senate and reach into the caucus, but I think it was Premier Jayapal was able to say they're not going to vote for it, and so I can't deliver you the votes because they're not going to vote for it if you get rid of that. I mean, this was over the $15 minimum wage stuff.
Yeah,
so tell that story, because this is an important dynamic that I think there's no analog to this in the Republican Party, because there's no ask. There's no set of things that they want. And so, this is the problem I think people make all the time is we want our own Freedom Caucus. Well, the dynamic is such that it doesn't function in the same way, because the Freedom Caucus doesn't care about actually building something. Any dream progressive left-wing entity in the Democratic Party, we want them to actually do stuff, not inhibit the doing of stuff.
Yeah, and this really got no attention at the time, but it was fascinating. And because there's three things going on. There's the $15 minimum wage that the left wanted in this package. There's the $2,000 checks that the left wanted in the package, and there's the massively expanded unemployment benefits. And so AOC actually did something extremely clever with these checks. So $600 had already had been put out by Trump, and then Trump's like, actually, it should be $2,000. So AOC had introduced a bill immediately saying, all right, here's the $1,400, pass it now. Mitch McConnell's like, no, we're not going to pass this. And then that became the big issue in the Georgia Senate runoffs. Do you want these $1,400 checks passed or not? If you do, vote for Democrats. If you don't, vote for Republicans. People shockingly were like, yes, we want them. Voted for Democrats. But what AOC had done in the bill, which people hadn't really noticed at the time, was she had also moved the amount that every dependent got up from, it was $400 or something.
Well, if I remember correctly, it was they were talking 2,000 for everybody, but it was a narrower set of people. And so when the 1,400 came out, it was a wider group of people. And
also dependents would also get the full 1,400, which meant that if you're a family of four, aside from the checks you already got from the last bill in December, you were getting a check for $5,600. When that lands in your account, that's a big check, and nobody noticed it. I mean, maybe people noticed, but it didn't get any attention. That all of a sudden everybody was getting this amount. So they wanted that. They wanted this, what they called the super dole, $600 extra a month, unemployment benefits for everybody. And so Manchin comes back and he's trying to narrow the $15 minimum wage gets booted out. Bernie forces a vote on it. They don't have the vote, so it doesn't get in. But then Manchin comes back. He tries to narrow who can get these checks, and he tries to strip down unemployment benefits. And there's so much anger about the minimum wage, and there's so much kind of public discussion and energy around this, that Jayapal is able to very credibly tell Schumer, look, like you said, I don't have the votes for this. If you pull this out, the squad is going to walk on this. Like you've already had this stupid parliamentarian thing with the minimum wage. Now you're going to try to trim back on these checks and unemployment benefits. And so Schumer was then, and people could feel the energy, like in Congress. You can sense whether or not a threat has power behind it or not, and you could just sense that no, they're feeling real pressure from their base. So when Schumer then goes to Manchin, he's like, look, I can't do this for you. Like, I'm going to lose that. So then it's up to Manchin. Do I take this whole thing down, or do I cave? And it was a rare moment because it's so hard for the left to credibly make those threats, because usually the left is like, all right.
And this
$200 is better than
this
$600.
This is essentially February or March of 2020 of 2021.
Right.
And this is also, frankly, I mean, I felt this at the time. Manchin's weakness then was he was at peak weakness. Mm-hmm. Like, we started to hear, I think you guys were the ones who got that audio of him talking to No Labels. And that didn't happen until like a month or two after that. Yeah. And that would have been the time for Biden to come back with Build Back Better, because Manchin was like, he didn't know what was going on. He was saying, maybe we need $6 trillion of spending instead of $4 trillion. And he hadn't heard essentially yet from, he seemed to be walking around looking for like, who's going to adopt me here? Mm-hmm. And if Biden had struck quicker, instead of like wasting all that time with inviting the Republicans over and then inviting Portman and Sinema in to provide their sort of like whole set of bills, it seems like that's when you do it. When the heat is on, the metal is soft. That's when you start to pound and you do that. And then they waited until like the Sinema and Manchin could find each other and find their funders and et cetera.
And then you start to see inflation numbers tick up. And then he's like, okay, there's my thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can pretend that's what was his
hook. Yeah.
Yeah. But then Manchin, facing that choice early on, caved. It's like, all right, if the squad's going to walk.
That early, he had no grip on it. All right. Lastly, let's talk about, we've been talking around in terms of like the political implications. Do you have any sense of like what the administration thinks they're going to be able to get away with in terms of pretending we have no leverage over Israel, except for like all that money and the weaponry? Like it's been sort of fascinating how they're both sort of simultaneously playing this, like, where can we find the leverage? And they're like literally holding a lever in their hand.
Right. And you have that amazing quote from the Israeli Minister of Defense from early on in the conflict, where he says, like, when they're asking about humanitarian aid, he's like, the U.S. wants us to allow humanitarian aid in. The U.S. is providing us with all of our weapons and material. What do you want us to tell them? No.
This is him answering his own critics in the Israeli in the ruling coalition of that party. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, what do you want us to tell them? No. That's all you need to understand about the relationship between Israel and the United States. Yet today you have Anthony Blinken like speeding out of town in his motorcade while with Netanyahu resuming the war in precisely the way that Blinken told him they should not resume it.
Oh, but Ryan, they're sending out flyers with QR codes. So
with no
all
internet.
you have to do in Gaza is get your smartphone and click on the QR code, and you'll be able to go to a designated safe zone that's probably not that safe. It's just.
And how many people can you fit in these safe zones? They've evacuated the north.
This was already the most densely populated, whatever it is. I don't know how many square
25
miles.
Square miles or something in the world.
In the world. And you've basically halved, if not more than halved, the land area where it's supposedly everybody, is safe. But and then you're chopping it up like Swiss cheese, essentially. It's absurd. It's absurd.
And you mentioned Blinken. Blinken had a quote yesterday where he said And it seemed like this is a bit of a slight turn in the rhetoric where he said that, the Israeli government has one of the most, quote, sophisticated militaries in the world, and it is capable of neutralizing the threat posed by Hamas while minimizing harm to innocent men, women, and children. To me, that seems like him publicly saying, well, they can do it if they want to, but they're not doing it, and it's our hands are clean if that's the case. We know that that's not obviously true. The United States could do way more. But the 972 and Guardian pieces that came out yesterday, speaking about how the Israeli government is using artificial intelligence to AI to specifically target every bombing location, and they know when civilians are there. Like the precision of their weaponry is well known and is now being stated publicly by the Biden administration, and yet still we are behind them, even though we know that they are targeting these citizens deliberately. And the question is, like, I clearly know that it seems like Biden, he had that 1970-ish meeting with Golda Meir and has changed his life forever or whatever. But so ideologically, maybe he's a lost cause. But in terms of the domestic pressure here, what's your sense of if that's real from an electoral perspective, and if it really can change force them to change course in any way?
Yeah, on the ideology of Biden, you remember, I forget who did the story first. Maybe I think it's Jeremy Scahill had a piece about how in the early 1980s, when Israel invaded Lebanon and absolutely wreaked havoc, Begin met with Biden, and Biden was telling him, you should just take the gloves off. Don't worry about civilian casualties. You have a job to do. And Begin, total war criminal, told him, easy there, buddy. We don't talk like that. That you need to step back a little bit. And then Ronald Reagan got on the phone with Begin, and by the end of the call had forced Begin to reach a ceasefire. So he was to the right of Ronald Reagan back in the 1980s. And so are they going to feel any pressure? I think there's feeling some. I think that Blinken comment, but also some of the other ones that have been made public, where he's saying, you cannot conduct, and Biden has said the same thing to them, you cannot conduct the second half of this war the way you conducted the first half. You have to do something more targeted. You cannot just completely flatten southern Gaza after flattening northern Gaza. So they're changing their rhetoric, but like you said, they have total leverage, and Israel's doing this anyway. The one thing they announced today, that they're going to put visa restrictions, I don't know if you saw this, on quote unquote violent settlers.
Yes, the U.S. is going to put visa restrictions on extremist settlers in the West Bank, which you'll hit potentially half the population that are coming from Brooklyn, essentially.
Exactly. If you
but not the ones that have come from the former Soviet Union.
Right, but it's a huge number of them who go back and forth to the United States. And if you told them that they couldn't come to the United States anymore, that would be kind of life-changing. Yeah. Now, how they're going to enforce that and how they identify who qualifies for it. So that's an example of a thing they can do.
Right.
And on top of conditioning the aid. I mean, that seems to be, there seems to be growing sentiment in the Senate to do that. At least I've read up to 20 senators in the Senate are bandering that about. Have you heard anything more? I know that you guys reported, I think, was it Klippenstein reported that Bernie Sanders may introduce this, but in a couple of weeks.
Bernie said he was thinking about it. He told Dan Boguslaw that. Yeah, it's hard. It would take at least 2 weeks, even if you introduce it today, to make the resolution privileged. And there's so many people in Gaza who are just, fighting the clock at this point. Right. Blinken told Israel in a meeting recently, when Israel said this is going to take us several months to finish this, he was like, you don't have that credit. The world's not going to allow that, which means that Israel then, what they often do with their Gaza wars, toward the end, they ramp it up. just everything in the kitchen is just sent out.
So let's send them more ingredients without conditions.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And not just more ingredients. It's like a 4 years worth of supply. If we're talking $14 billion, my math's not great, but it's around what 3 to 3.5 billion we send them annually. So that's like the scale of the weaponry we're talking about.
Yeah, and the place is basically uninhabitable.
Yes.
Yet 2 million people have to live there.
Ryan Grimm, we'll put a link to your book. Thanks for joining us today. Just the level of destruction in Gaza, just it really is unimaginable at this point. DC Bureau Chief, host of Deconstructed, co-host of Counterpoints. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Well, we'll put a link to the book. Now's the day to buy it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Now's the time to get it.
Do it and stick it to Ted Cruz, folks.
That's right.
There you go. And all right, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program. And oh wait, no, we're not heading into the fun half right now. We're going to take a quick break and seat, or do we even need to take a break and seat Matthew Film Guy?
I would just need to do it for the.
Okay, we're going to take a quick
framing.
break and we're going to seat Matthew Film Guy. We're not going to go to the fun half yet. This is not going to be fun. This is going to be the thing that we got to do with Matthew.
The chore middle.
We'll be right back.
Matthew, the film guy, is choosing your streams. Cassavetes on Netflix and other such themes. Maybe you'll watch one and learn a few things. Please recommend me a movie to stream.
What's his name?
Matthew, please recommend me a movie to stream. Matthew, film guy.
Yes, that's true. Matthew, film guy here, joining Emma Vigeland and I in studio.
Hi.
Very exciting.
This is fantastic.
What is going on with the height disparity between you two? I don't know what's.
How tall are you,
Matthew
Matthew?
Film
I
Guy's
think it's
6'8".
Oh.
Yeah.
That is.
I'm 5'11".
I think you guys are the exact same height. What did you like? Are you sitting on a pillow or something?
We got him the DeSantis setup.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't make me have to walk in these, but it looks pretty good.
Matthew, film guy, coming in with his prosthetic butt, which allows him
Got a
to
BBL
lift
for the
himself
seat.
in the seat.
So he's not tall when he stands, but he's really tall when he sits.
That's correct. That's right.
I'm
That's
glad
right.
you got those implants.
There you go. There you go.
I could slouch.
Was Cassavetes ever on Netflix? I just listened to that.
I think you probably could have gotten his DVDs out of there at one point.
Yes.
Yeah, I doubt it was ever streaming.
There was a real loss with the quality of Netflix movies when it went to streaming versus DVDs. I mean, which was I feel like counterintuitive at the time, because I remember when that transition happened, and I remember thinking like, oh, well, this would be. I mean, like you have unlimited space in the cloud. Except for, no, it costs money for them to keep it in the cloud, and it's not worth it for them than just to have a DVD, which is, a one-time charge of whatever it is,
Also,
$5. And,
taking advantage of the post office to being able to send those DVDs out.
yeah. Well, I mean, they would pay postage. It was built
I
into your
suppose, yeah.
subscription.
I think we could chalk that up to artistic license on behalf of my friend Jason Pace, the masterful craftsman of that little ditty.
All right. Well, fair enough.
but I
guess you
mean,
don't want to address the question.
I think there's like a small.
I find it fascinating. We could go into the politics of DVDs, and
Yeah.
I was never a physical media guy. I get a lot of shit as a film guy in film guy circles for not really being a physical media guy, even back in the days of VHS. I figured if it was rentable, it was out there somewhere if I wanted to watch it. I never had to have it in my house. I needed to go and grab it. I'd rather have a poster or something else, a book about the movie. So I was never a physical media
So you
guy.
never owned any of these movies, and now do you regret it?
No. Not
Well,
in the least.
they're gonna go up in price. I saw Best Buy is ceasing all physical media sales in terms of like movies and things like that going, or maybe one of those big sellers. But like because with all of that streaming stuff, the secondary market for that's gonna go up. I think I'd imagine.
Well, call me crazy, but I never fetishized the physical object, and I feel like I live in the time where every movie ever made practically is available.
Hold on for a second. Hold
We're
on.
making news here.
Hold on.
Hot take.
You don't fetishize the physical object? Your whole thing is selling all these physical tchotchkes on eBay.
I want you to fetishize the physical object, not me. I don't have to do it. I mean, you don't get high on your own supply.
Well, where did you get this stuff?
What stuff?
This stuff that you sell on eBay.
From you. From all around this office. I got all kinds of crap from all kinds of places.
All right.
It's not mostly physical media that I'm like videos and stuff. I'm selling like buttons and pins and pens and really obscure shit. I had a certain point a few tapes and so on, things that like I inherited from my dad. I think I had the VHS of Michael Jackson's Thriller when I was 9. I wore that out. That's somewhere. But I probably didn't sell that.
I have saved probably more DVDs than I should have, because I think it's like I still have a little bit of.
Hoarding?
I think it's not so much hoarding as it is like preppy thing. Like I'm just like, if we get one of those like if the internet shuts down, I want my kids to be like
Watching the Fast and Furious DVD commentary.
Well, the this is where you go for the movies in the Oracle in the in the after days.
Yeah, this sounds like, who was that guy who was like, your money supply when the internet goes down. Like if the internet goes down, I'm not gonna be worried about the movies. Like there's more problems that we're gonna have if that happens.
Well, I don't know if the internet goes down after a while, things will normalize after like 6 to 8 months, as we're into warring factions, but people are still going to need entertainment.
Look,
You're not going to go back to just storytelling.
We'll see how Earth responds to that. That's what Elon Musk said, that when Twitter went down, like everyone would go into the streets. I've got news for him. Everything will just return to normal.
Yeah, I don't worry about that. I did actually, I did have some DVDs for a while that spoiler alert, I ripped them to a hard drive and they're just sitting there. So I actually can watch a lot of this stuff. To me, once they're ones and zeros, they're immortal. They can be shuttled between drives. They can be shared infinitely. So I'm not worried. I got more movies on a hard drive than I'll probably ever be able to watch before I die. So that's not really where I'm concerned.
Fine.
But if you have any DVDs that you want to, move, we can talk about it.
Well, I don't know if we have any DVDs in here. I got some Majority Report documentary.
I heard that was really good.
We should say, obviously, Matthew, film guy, edited that documentary. When that was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
This is Sam math. It was 2004. So.
Okay.
It was for the 2004 RNC.
All right, but we didn't edit it. It took probably a couple months. So
you're right.
19 years.
So it's closer to what you were saying. You're right.
Right,
yeah.
19 years. And Matthew is in studio today, not just so that we have the opportunity to talk to you, but we're going to go through and finally sell off some of our big ticket audio equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's really going to be something that lay people are going to be terribly interested in. A lot of this is some of it is radio stuff.
Depends on if you autograph it.
Well, I'm going to sell like a used piece of audio equipment that
Autographed
can get
HDMI
like a couple $100 and then autograph it, because the people it's worth a couple $100 to, they don't care about my autograph.
No, that's right. But you increase the volume of bidders, and anything's possible.
I don't know how this works, so I will probably defer to you.
Don't you recall the time I was in here gathering air that you signed? Those got moved. So
yeah, but like for 35 cents or something, right?
I mean,
it was all Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, no, it was not. There was not. There was a lot of proud people out there. Right now,
Ronald Reagan has a bunch of sock puppet accounts, and he just goes in and buys stuff from you at times.
That is a recent development, which I really appreciate. So by all means, keep it up. But no, that back then, that was some legitimate MR fans that just wanted to take advantage of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own some of this wonderfully warm studio air.
I don't know why we don't sell that on our merch page.
Probably to keep the veneer of legitimacy to your operation going.
I don't think it's illegitimate to sell studio air. I mean, it's not like we're promising. We're not promising something that we're not delivering.
Yeah,
that is true.
Why do you hate the free market?
Exactly.
Huh?
Okay, great. Suckers born every minute, not your problem.
Well, oh my God, you're really helping the eBay sales.
No, the stuff that you have here is legitimately valuable. The air was more of a gag. It was a Kaufman-esque joke.
Let me ask you this: what have you been up to, Matthew Film Guy? I know that things were a little stalled during the writers and actors strike. What have you been up to?
Well, the good news is finally I'm going to be editing a new movie, probably looking in February or March. That's going to be happening, so thank God for that.
Can you tell us what the movie is, or is it still in the works and you're a little bit nervous?
It's still somewhat in the works, but I'll talk more about it next time probably, because it'll be a little bit more solid. But
genre?
Actually, I think it's like a romantic comedy, believe it or not. Kind of a
rom-com.
Yeah, but like indie rom-com, so quirky and odd, and with the sensibilities that goes with all that. But for the most part, I've been, teaching my amazing online film appreciation class, which, by the way, once again, features Julie Seder.
Well, they're not featuring her. She's she's
a student.
Participating.
I'm happy that she's there, so I consider it a good feature. If anybody else wants to join, you'll see it as a feature. She's a great addition to the class, and plus a million other great people come in and out of there off of Majority Report fandom. And watching a lot of films, keeping up my film guy credentials. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of commitment.
How many films do you watch?
Some movies, some films. I do.
How many films and movies do you watch on an average week?
I'd say I've averaged, in fact, Letterboxd, if you want to go to my Letterboxd at Langdon Boom, it keeps track. And I think I'm averaging like...
Does it automatically show up there? Have you figured out some type of script?
Congratulations, Emma. Look forward to seeing you there.
Well,
what it does is it gives you your stats for the year. So you can go and look and see how many you've seen for the year. So I think for the year, I've averaged, so it's like I've averaged 0.75 a day. So, from 5 to 7 a week.
And what about, do you go to the theater anymore, or are you done with that?
No, I go to the theater. It takes a lot more to get me to do it. So it's been things like repertory screenings and revivals and certain, special events. In fact, next Tuesday, I'm excited to go see the new Todd Haynes film.
May, December.
Yeah, he's going to be doing a little like a gala sort of celebration. He's going to be there with some of the other folks involved with the film at the great Astoria Museum of the Moving Image. So that kind of thing is what gets me going, gets me out there. And for the most part, when they're first run movies, I just wait for them to come on streaming. It's not really much.
What? Give us a sense of like what your setup is. I mean, do you have a?
It's sweet. It's fucking
no,
sick.
but I mean honestly, like, do you watch on a big screen TV? Are you watching it on your computer?
Hell yeah, no. We have 2 pods. I have a living room pod, which is where I have the 7.1 surround sound system set up to go to my 4K.
And this is the same place you've been living for 20 years.
That's right. Yeah. Rent stabilized, I should say. And but I have a 4K OLED LG flat screen, which is super sweet. Yeah.
Now wait, where is that located in your apartment? You rearranged the whole orientation of your living room, didn't you?
I can't remember the last decade you were at my house, so
it was honestly
it's
probably
unclear.
10 years ago.
But I have a leather lazy boy recliner that sits right in the right perfect spot. I also have a 2-seat couch and then the screen pivots like
so
on
you
an arm.
only watch it with you. You don't even allow anybody else to watch
hell
the movie.
No.
Really?
No.
No.
Get the hell away from me.
And why is that?
I'm
Does
in
that
my feelings. Leave me alone.
Does that influence your opinion of a film if you watch it with somebody else?
Absolutely.
Can it change?
I'm extremely codependence, sensitive. So I've had movies ruined for me by people laughing at the wrong thing or not laughing at the right thing or just being very vibed on by another person. So
What if people go on their phone?
oh my, are you kidding? It's tantamount to capital crime as far as I'm concerned. That's another thing why I don't really go to the mainstream
Theaters?
because nowadays it's just no big deal. Just like I literally was at a movie a couple of years ago where somebody's phone rang, he picked up and he goes, "No, I'm just at a movie." What the fuck? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Not doing anything. I can talk. So yeah, I keep that stuff out of there. But the flat screen, I look right at it. I balance the audio and I play it. Mostly I play it off my little Mac Mini. Whether they're streaming or I have all the streaming services, so it all pipes right through there, or off the hard drive.
All the streaming services you play, you just get the app onto your computer, so it's all
or through a browser. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, lately, for some reason, I've been moved.
I think we've assumed that you're going to be honest throughout the whole thing. But
everything up until now has been a
all
lie.
right. I just wanted to point that out to people.
I actually just go see Marvel movies in the theater all the time, and that's it.
This is like the Chris Rosen scandal, part 2. Nobody knows what that means. Everybody.
I found it funny.
I mean, honestly, like we should do like a Majority Report trivia.
I love the 90s.
At one point of like,
Yeah.
maybe like one of our silver anniversary or something like that.
Sam, get in your box. You're not in your box.
Oh, actually, maybe 2024 is actually the 20-year anniversary of the show. Starting on Air America. Maybe we do some trivia
That'd be awesome.
and give away prizes or something like that.
I'd probably win. So
Sam made a Charles Bronson reference a few weeks ago that I thought I could catch, but I didn't catch it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is it maybe a telephone?
I was like, is it Matt Damon? And he was like, no, it's not Matt Damon.
Actually, it's funny that you bring up Charles Bronson because what I was about to say is that I've been moved to both revisit and also see a lot for the first time films surrounding the Israel-Palestine situation. And there's a million documentaries I've had on my list, and now's as good time as any to knock some of them out. And I've seen some really amazing ones. I've seen some sort of somewhat lame ones, but I actually went back and rewatched Delta Force, Raid on Entebbe, the Erwin Kershner version, Raid on Entebbe, the Menachem Golan version, the Israeli version. I watched all the versions of the Raid on Entebbe because, I'm like you. I was raised being told that was the greatest military event of all time.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Literally at summer camp, we were made to act it out. I don't know if you ever went that far.
No.
But, we literally were like, you're the Palestinians. You're the rescuers. You're the I want to be the IDF. No, you're the terrorist, So
Which version is the one where they're singing the Israeli anthem as the plane lifts off or something?
That's
like that?
that is the Erwin Kirshner version, the TV movie version.
Yes, I remember that one. That was like the
Is it played at school? Like did you
no,
guys play it?
but you know, got to remember
Hebrew
back at
school?
that time. No, this was on American television.
Yeah.
And you have to remember at that time, like, there's 3 things on.
Yeah.
And
Westerns are the other thing.
there was no other there. I mean, there was 3 channels and maybe 1 or 2 UHF, depending on where you lived. And you know, if you lived in like a big metro area, there would be 3 UHF channels.
Right. And they pumped this out right away, like almost a year later after the incident, because the whole thing was it was post-Vietnam syndrome. So let's celebrate a military that actually can go in and kick some ass like we're supposed to. So I revisited some of those. I watched actually the one I can really
Delta Force was the one with
Chuck Norris.
Oh wait, what's the one that that Bronson was in?
That's Raid on Entebbe, the TV movie.
He was in that
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah,
yes,
he
I
plays the
remember that.
military commander, not the Bibi Netanyahu's brother who gets killed. It's interesting watching in all 3 how they treat that. Like, but the Delta Force was actually they like sort of changed the names and changed the situation. It was sort of like a cover version. But Menachem Golan did that also. So he did the legitimate one in Hebrew, and then he did like the big budget American remake featuring G.I. Joe rocket sleds and things that shoot. It's like all this cool. He turned it into basically an episode of G.I. Joe. But that was the
okay, that was the theater release.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was with Chuck Norris. So I revisited those, and they're just as propagandistic as you could imagine. But I also saw something that it's very hard to actually get a hold of, but I think there's a version on YouTube with some sort of shitty subtitles. But Claude Lanzmann, who did the Shoah, which is the 17-hour movie about the Holocaust, he did sort of like a trilogy. The first one was called Why Israel? And then that was sort of about like all the reasons it was established. That was interesting and not quite as propagandistic as I expected. Then he did the Shoah, which is just, I think it's an immense work of art. Just put aside the political leanings, just as a film, it's incredible. And then he did this one called Sahal, the name of the Israeli Defense Force in Hebrew. And that one, it starts off looking like a commercial for IDF. And then as you sort of march through, it's that thing, I think you guys were talking about it yesterday, like he gives the people he's interviewing enough rope to sort of discuss their sort of prejudices, and then it starts to become kind of twisted and really revealing in a really honest way. And he's not making like political points. You can tell he has some sympathies as a Jew, as a Holocaust sort of scholar, but it was really a mind blower, and I highly recommend that to anybody who wants to see both. He doesn't go as into the sort of downsides of the occupation, although there are scenes in Gaza, and this is in the 90s. But listening to the Israeli soldiers, you get really a great sense of just how affected they are, like basically like the PTSD of being in a militarized society for 70 years and what their just values are like and how they see the world. And, nobody thinks that they're saying anything controversial, but it's also a long movie. So by the end of it,
How long is Zahal?
I think it's like also 6 or 7 hours.
Oh boy.
It's like in 3 parts. So you can see it in 3 parts on YouTube. But that was one of the most blown away I've been at a documentary in quite a while, because I did go into it thinking, all right, here's this advertisement for Israel. And it turned out to be much more, it was a work of art. It was about the human beings giving their sort of sense of what their lives are like. And you can draw your own conclusions, basically.
Did you ever see the documentary in 2012? I rewatched it recently, but before, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, The Gatekeepers, which was about the Shin Bet.
That sounds great too. I'll throw that on the list.
Yeah, that's something I think is pretty well done. But I know there are a few like more Palestinian focused documentaries that people have been recommending. But that one was more mainstream. Like that had a Best Documentary Feature Academy Award nomination.
Okay. Yeah. I some of those that I've liked in the past were one called 5 Broken Cameras. You ever seen that?
Oh yes, I remember.
By a
that.
Palestinian filmmaker who.
That wasn't that long ago, was it?
No, it was
Or
maybe
is that
10, 15 at the tops. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
When did we do the RNC video? It was around.
Right, exactly.
But I saw that actually just last night, since we're on this subject, I'll name check another one that's brand new practically. It played at Sundance, I think, last year. And it's called, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of this.
Will you make sure we write down these recommendations for people
I'll
in
put
the
them up,
podcast and the YouTube description?
I have my list on Letterboxd also of all the movies I recommend on here, so I'll throw it up in there afterwards.
But do you have them like a Israel-Palestine subcategory?
Not yet, but maybe I'll make that, because if you just go look at my diary at Langdon Boom, you'll see that I've been looking at a lot of these lately, and you'll see how I feel about them based on the stars. But Tentura, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with the city of Tentura. They made a documentary in 2008 that I watched first, which was very like low budget, almost like sort of home movie, very artless, but it has a lot of interviews with the survivors of Tentura, the Arab population there. And that was interesting. You get a lot of just sort of like stories and insights. And then last year they made a really slick, like Frontline style treatment of the same topic. This scholar, Teddy Katz, did a report. He did his thesis on what had really happened there, the sort of after they had taken over the town of Tentura, the sort of massacre and the atrocities they committed, and he basically got destroyed for it. He was taken to court. He was forced to sign a retraction, all this crap. And this movie is really interesting because it doesn't really interview the Arabs of the situation. It interviews the Israelis, the surviving like 4 90-year-old guys who were there, and it is crazy the way they react.
Oh wait, are these the guys? I think I've seen a clip of this
must
where
have
they're
seen this
talking
trailer,
about.
like, yes, we killed them.
yes, and they're like half laughing about
the laughing.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's
Yep.
Tentura. Okay,
Yeah.
I saw a clip of that online. And I was wondering, been trying to figure out where that was from.
Yeah, check that one out.
That
because
is-
it's chilling, and
That had a quality to me of like like a good Errol Morris documentary where his whole thing is, I'm gonna just give them, I'm gonna let them fill the silence type of thing.
yeah. That's essentially what happens. I mean, it's a little more slickly edited. That's why I say it's like Frontline. And they
Right.
play a lot of the tapes that Teddy had recorded. He went and interviewed all these people, and they said, "Yeah, we basically did some stuff." And he reported all of it, and then the Israeli establishment just said, like, "No, you didn't." They all sued him. He sort of lost in court.
Ilan
You heard of
Pappy's
this?
involved in this. If you want an update on this, about a year ago, he had a webinar called Tentura Massacre Revisited. If you search Ilan Pappy, there's only about 4.3 thousand views on it, but he really goes into especially the recantation of that guy sort of under
Teddy Katz,
pressure.
yeah.
And then immediately he's like, actually, I don't mean that recantation. Like, yeah.
They wouldn't let him. The courts wouldn't let him retract the
retraction.
Yeah, and they actually pulled his thesis from the shelves of the library. So cancel culture.
I mean,
Poppy's in it too, by the way.
A lot of this crap happens. Oh, he's in the documentary.
It's a great sort of microcosm. It's not about the whole situation writ large, but it's a great microcosm of showing you what can and can't be said, and the foundational myth that we are the most moral army in the world. It really revolves around how they decided to start selling that to the world.
And it also, I think, makes it clear how steeped in a propagandistic culture you are if you grow up in Israel, and then of course
Or
then it bleeds
in
out-
Akron, Ohio.
or in Akron, Ohio too. But theoretically, I mean, on some level, you wonder like if it had gone the opposite direction, rather than trying to emanate out of Israel. They're so tightly controlled there.
Yeah.
And I think that examples of that show it. Like, and that's the thing, I've mentioned this before, and I don't know if you ever watched the great Book Robbery.
Yep. Your favorite documentary of all time.
Well, the reason why I like that so much is because it shows all of those elements. It shows the elements of the existence of a Palestinian culture, which the growing up and being indoctrinated in this, you're like, there was no.
Yeah.
What's a Palestinian? It's an empty desert. There was just a couple of tents, and that's it. And then it also shows the sort of self-consciousness of the Israeli government, because they realize this is problematic. So we've got to bury this stuff deeply, literally in the National Library. There's this secret vault of these books that you're not allowed to see.
Abandoned property.
And what's also has always been weird to me about it, and I wonder if like this is you can also see some undercurrent of like, they could have taken those books theoretically and just burned them. But it's
That's
almost
a little too on the nose.
Well, but that's the point.
Yeah.
Is that like
we don't do that.
we don't do that. What we do is just
Yeah.
effectively burn them,
Yeah.
but not actually burn them.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
And-
they just bombed like the major library in Gaza, right? So like
Right.
they're basically doing that at this point as well.
Right.
But they didn't burn them.
yeah,
But they didn't. But that's my point. Is that like you can see the rationalization in their actions, the way that they rationalize the behavior. That, and it's not. I don't consider that documentary to be like a work of art. It's a work of journalism, I think, more than
Yeah, and that's the thing. As I'm watching these, some of them are more on the artistic side, like Chris Marker, the famous French documentarian. He made one that was much more impressionistic and also interesting in its own right about what it reveals and so on. And then some of them are more just like semi-journalism, and obviously they're not as sourced, and you can't always look up where everything comes from. But from where I'm coming from as the film guy, they're telling subjective truths, especially when they're interviewing human beings and they're giving their own sort of first person accounts. And those subjective truths are truths too. They may not, be factually 100% checked, but there's something valuable to understanding the situation from the inside in a way that just even reading leftist news doesn't quite give you. It doesn't give you the flavor or the understanding.
So, have we already heard your
No, have you heard of the Marvels?
Oh,
I have one more Israeli film.
a woke film.
There's
Easy
one
joke.
Israeli film on the Criterion Channel, Polygraph, from 2020. Have you heard? It's 2020. It's by a Arab Israeli a filmmaker. Was it Samira Saraya? But it's an openly lesbian Arab nurse finds out that her lover, an intelligence officer in the Israeli army, has been reporting on their relationship.
Ooh, interesting.
It's a short 20-minute thing, but I think it gets into the paranoia and the way a militarized culture seeps into everything.
That's interesting. I'll put that on the list. I've seen only a few sort of dramatic movies that are Israeli. One of my favorite movies of all time is a movie called Late Marriage. I don't know if you ever saw that, early 2000s, and it's very much not political in the sense of the situation. It's about a man who's turning 35 and his mother really wants him to get married, so they're pushing him to get married. So I relate to it on that level, but it's there's a plethora of cinema out there, both on and not on the situation, that I am still sort of catching up with.
So have we heard your recommendation, or do you have a specific?
Well, I feel a little bad recommending Tantura. Tantura is widely available, so we can definitely keep that as an official recommendation. I definitely am not recommending Delta Force or Raid on Entebbe, but if you really want to see like what some of us were sort of fed growing up,
Yeah.
You can check that one out. It's still Delta Force is still my dad's like favorite Zionist propaganda, so I have to go with that. Yeah, you can, and Sahal is harder to find on YouTube, but I have to say that's the best film, like actual film that I saw of the situation, because it's definitely not polemical in a certain way. It's very humanistic, and it's very much about interviewing the people's lives. And again, you can quibble with he doesn't really talk about the invasion of Lebanon. He doesn't talk about certain things that you might want as a leftist to see, why don't we ask them about why this happened or that happened? But in terms of a real look into the lives of the human beings in this situation, and they're all affected, both sides, by the militarization of this. Obviously, one side a little more than the other, but I have to say that's the best of all the movies that I've seen so far. So also though, because of the romantic comedy that I'm going to be editing, the director told me I should start watching Paul Mazursky movies. Are you a Paul Mazursky fan?
Yeah. Wait. Is he? Who is Missouri? What was his movies?
Well, he started out sort of more on the kind of 70s new
Right.
cinema. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice was
Yes. Okay. Right.
And the Next Stop Greenwich Village is another one. He's sort of like it's like a cross between Cassavetes and like Woody Allen sort of.
Yes. I mean,
So-
Bob, Carol, Ted, and I remember that. And okay.
That's a great example of like how Hollywood used to be able to make movies about real people, real issues that were a little uncomfortable, and they weren't just corny, cheesy sort of throwaway kind of confections. It's not exactly super deep. It doesn't quite commit to certain disturbing things that it may have done. It's a little conservative in the end, but it's great. And he did like a series of 5 or 6 films that were all about like middle class, mostly Jews in New York and California, dealing with the whole 60s revolution and free love and changing gender roles and all this stuff. So he did.
Oh, he did I Love You, Alice B. Toklas.
I Love You, Alice B. Toklas. That's a real 60s touchstone.
And he also did Moscow on the Hudson.
And I just watched that. And actually, that one is, I had seen that when I was a kid, and I remember being like upset that he wasn't like more comedic in it, you know? Like, again, it was 84. But that's another one that's like, definitely not a super deep movie, and it's definitely a commercial film, but it deals with the content of it. It's about immigration, about like idealism of America and how it doesn't really fulfill that idealization. So it has like issues that today it's just like, where are these kinds of mainstream movies?
He did Stars. Oh God, it's a
Which Star is
bizarre.
Born?
He did the original Star is Born.
Really?
And he also did Punchline, which is
did? Are you
yes,
sure?
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
And
That one's-
Punchline was Sally Field and Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
And Paul Kozlowski, a guy from Cross Comedy, was
Okay,
in that,
okay.
and that's why we were like, Wait, this says it was written by David Seltzer. Maybe he produced.
He might have just produced that one.
Okay,
As a
okay.
director, he did Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Did you see that one? That's another.
Was that Nick Nolte?
Yep.
Okay.
And
got
Richard
it.
Dreyfuss. I mean, these were what were mainstream comedies in the 80s and the 70s. So it's really a breath of fresh air to see that normal audiences went to see these movies that
He
were
didn't do
about-
Bulworth, did he? Maybe he produced
No,
that one.
you got to
too.
look under director.
Okay.
He acted in Stars Born.
And also, he's an actor.
Yeah.
He's in most of his
Okay,
movies. So
all
you're
right,
looking
sorry.
at his
I'm looking at just-
performances.
yeah, sorry
All
about
right, just
that.
leave the film guy stuff to me.
I
Sam. It's okay.
apologize, folks.
That's all right. He did one in the 70s called Willie and Phil. I don't know if you saw that one. It's sort of a 70s New York remake of Jules and Jim that was sort of interesting. And
He acted in I Want Someone to Eat Cheese With. That is
yeah, no, I'm not interested in what he acted in.
okay.
But An Unmarried Woman, that's another one that's a famous one. That one's not great, but it's about a divorced woman on the Upper East Side and, how she's, cast off by her husband philandering. Definitely. Also, if you like New York in the 70s and the 80s. So I'm on that kick, and I got to say, you can do
so
worse.
what should we watch of his?
Just all of them.
Okay.
Well, if you're going to pick one, I'd say go with Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. If
Yeah.
you haven't seen that one, because it is effing hilarious. I've been cursing this whole time. I don't know why I pulled up there. But it is so funny, and it's, just a great cast, and the premise is...
George Siegel just passed away. I guess
I
by
know.
I mean like 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, around the time of the DVD. And if you're going to pick one, I'd say go with that one.
Okay. Matthew Film Guy, always a pleasure.
Wait, hang on a second. Before I go,
geez.
I have something. This is, I know you don't like to discuss this, but this is a engagement present
Oh,
for you.
thank you so much.
If you want to, I think it would be appropriate to
To share.
share.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Matthew.
My pleasure.
Jesus Christ.
Let me say that. You gave me that for mine.
Oh, wait, did I?
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Yep.
I slipped my mind. Listen, it's a great book.
Did you
Marriage.
or did you not remember that you gave me that? You son of a bitch. Is that the version? Did I give it back to you?
Well, it didn't
It
work.
It didn't
so,
work out.
yeah.
It didn't work out. But to
Feels
be
like
honest,
it feels like an omen.
I may not have read it.
Let me just
Maybe
say,
you should read it.
Yeah, read it definitely, and don't let the title scare you or fool you. It's a deep book about being in a relationship, emotional relationship with a person. It's not a sex book by any means.
Okay.
It's about differentiation and how to be really intimate with another person requires you to be your own person as opposed to the sort of codependent thing.
Yes.
And in theory, I think it works great. I have not been able to make it work, but maybe you and your beloved. will.
I think we
Okay,
just used it.
wonderful.
We just used it as a
Thank you,
talisman.
Matthew.
As a talisman.
You just
It-
pointed to it.
Yeah, no, we just like basically left it on the counter for 15 years.
You read
didn't-
it.
It
No,
didn't
you
work.
read it.
Yeah, we couldn't agree on who was
You
going
need
to
to
read it
read it.
first, and that was the beginning.
Definitely one of the best books I've ever read, just on human beings. So
Well, I like that.
enjoy.
Wow, that was very
Thank you,
sweet of you,
Matthew.
and also probably predictable.
Exactly.
Matthew, Film Guy, thank you so much.
I have to say one more thing.
here we go.
The Discord is one of my favorite places to hang out, the film room in the Discord. And one particular member asked me to wish him a happy birthday. So, Bumbler, happy birthday. It was his birthday last week. So,
There you go.
I'd be remiss if I didn't fill that
All right.
obligation. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, I
Thank
saw
you
the
so much,
meme that
Matthew.
you put all over the place too for my happy birthday.
Yeah, was it all over the place? I
I don't know. My sister sent it from Facebook. I don't go on Facebook.
What's the meme? I would like to see
I don't know.
this.
Maybe it was on Instagram. I have no idea.
You just look it up. It's,
All right.
It's a cute little meme.
All
It was
right.
me and Sam back in the old days.
Yeah, that was also
20 years ago.
23.
Yeah, 23.
I have to look it up. I don't even know how to get on the Discord. Do you have to create an account? Yeah. Oh.
MajorityDiscord.com.
All right.
Oh my
sorry.
God.
Wow.
Folks.
And also, can I just say that I know I'm stalling here, but my class is still open. We did 2 classes so far, but you can jump on anytime. If you want to come in and talk about movies with a group of people who are really smart, come and join me. Find my link in my bio at all my
It's
social
over
medias.
Zoom or what's the?
Yeah, you get a movie on like a Wednesday or a Thursday on a link, and then we talk about it on Tuesday at noon Eastern time for about 2 hours.
All right.
and
Well,
it's
that
always
I
great.
feel like can be explained when people sign up.
No, because I've had a lot of people say like,
I'd like to know what the process.
do I
is
have
gonna
to
be like.
watch at the time or yeah? So thank you for asking, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
Sam, it's your show. Go ahead.
Folks, it's your support that helps this show survive and thrive. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free half free of commercials, you also get the fun half. You can IM the fun half. And maybe we'll have a special members link to any type of like Majority Report paraphernalia that
Now
we
you're
put
thinking.
up. Now I'm like really cooking with gas. As always, if you cannot afford a membership, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com and we will work something out with you. But if you're somebody who enjoys the show a couple of times a week or more, become a member. Help us provide content for all those other people too, and for yourself. And shop.majorityreportradio.com. We will send out another member link probably sometime next week. It'll be the same link. So if you've already been using it, you'll get 10% off any of the merch. But shop.majorityreportradio.com. We've added new merch. If you haven't been there in a while, check it out. Obviously, the Discord, majoritydiscord.com. The AM Quickie. Jacob and Corey have been pumping it out. People love it. amquickie.com and justcoffee.coop.
Look what Matthew Film Guy's got there.
Fair trade coffee. Yeah, he's drinking early.
I was about
Fair
to
trade
say,
coffee.
I've
Get
heard
the Majority
those are
Report brand.
really, really strong.
They're really strong.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be here a while.
Yeah. You gonna sleep
This is
here?
part of my
You got any more of
endorsement
those?
deal.
You brought a roadie.
Yeah, every time I drink one of these on the air, John Benjamin sends me like a couple 4-packs. So I'm just trying to.
I mean,
You're being
right?
you're being an influencer.
He knows where the studio is. I don't know why we're not getting none of that.
Yeah,
that's true.
I gotta talk
Are
to
you
him about
blatantly flogging it like me? I don't know. Try it.
I
it.
can.
We actually may. We were supposed to have some type of deal where we would get like a special for Majority Report viewers, but well, okay, we'll figure it out. Emma, what ESVN?
Yes, yesterday we gave our picks against the spread. We also broke down the crazy billionaire David Tepper having a breakdown and throwing his first-round pick under the bus, among other people, as well as the bizarre rumors surrounding Corey Perry in Chicago. YouTube.com/ESVN show.
Matt.
Yeah, check out Left Reckoning. We talked to Brian Meyer about the long coup in Brazil and the American involvement on it, which has been underemphasized by different folks. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. Brian did a peer-reviewed paper on the U.S. involvement of it, so it is not any sort of thing that anybody should be able to dismiss. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Let's do this. So, okay, we're back.
Hey.
All right, we'll get to that, I guess. I don't know.
It's silly.
Like I feel like if we were doing, if we do actresses or actors who say dumb things about, comedians who say dumb things about Israel-Palestine, we will be here for weeks.
Yep.
But before we get there, let's get into my wheelhouse, ladies and gentlemen. On Wednesday, the House Oversight Subcommittee hearing, now understand what's going on here. They are laying the groundwork, the Republicans are, to cut Social Security and Medicare. Johnson has already talked about setting up a committee to do this, to look